Again, my name is Jonathan Butler. I'm an Education Outreach Specialist and Reentry Employment Specialist with the Texas Workforce Commission. So, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to introduce our panelists, and I will let them introduce themselves. So how about you tell us who you are, what do you do, and where are you working from?
Hey, by the looks I'm getting, it looks like I'm starting. So my name is Christina Hartman. I'm the superintendent with the Windham School District. The Windham School District operates within the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. We are a unique statewide school district. Hey, Christina.
My name is April Zamora. I'm the Reentry and Integration Division Director with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
And good morning. My name is Tracy Williams, and I am a reentry specialist and adjunct professor at Lee College. And Lee College, as you know, does correctional education and has been doing it for 56 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Thank you. I'm truly honored to be moderating for this panel and to have you all to agree to provide your insight and guidance for everyone that might be listening. I do challenge each and every one of you that even though you come from all places across Texas, I heard San Antonio, Loretto, remember, there are things that we can learn from one another. So I challenge you, before this conference is over, is to meet somebody new. Know their name, what they do, and build a partnership. Be intentional about your follow-up. Remember, this is a conference, so we are participating in training, we're listening to speakers, but don't forget the key factor of conferences, and that's networking. We talk about how job seekers should be asking the right questions, but reminder that we too need to be asking the same questions. I also want to remind you that the information that you might obtain today might be the key to unlocking somebody else's prison in the future. So, with that being said, I'd like to begin with our first question. You guys ready? Okay. So what programs are available that can lead to certifications and/or credentials? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. First of all, I just want to extend thanks to Commissioner Alvarez, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and you, Mr. Butler. And it's with those collaborations that we have pathways with TDC, with Windham, as well as the reentry division. And we can do, as Mr. Collier said, which lead to successful reentry. And with that said, Lee College, we have 9 technical or vocational programs that we offer on 9 different units in and around the Huntsville area. We have a little over 1,200 students that we have enrolled. And so through these technical programs, individuals are able to not only get stackable credentials or certifications, but they're also able to add associates in applied science and business management degree. And so what that does is allow them to also get some of these national certifications, such as AWS, ASC, VIG. These certain certifications are national industry certifications. Also, with these partnerships that we have, which a pathway from Windham to Lee College, and potentially sometimes in the higher education and prison programs that potentially lead to a bachelor's degree, individuals are more prepared or ready when they step out the door day one to receive a job. And what these technical programs does is something big in Texas called high skill, high growth jobs. And these jobs are in demand. And with these certifications that we have at Lee College, such as welding, HVAC, CDL, we have a CDL training site on the WIN unit. And what this does, it allows individuals to get the training that they need to not only be more employable, but also that these people can reintegrate back into society. Like Mr. Butler said, you know, you don't know if the individual has been incarcerated or not. You know, the Bureau of Justice says 95% of all incarcerated people will return to society one day. And so these certifications and these credentials that we have through Lee College and other educational programs allows individuals to not only be more employable, just to be able to give back to their communities.
Sure, and I'll add to that from a Wyndham standpoint. First of all, to piggyback on what you said, Tracy, Wyndham School District and Lee College have a very strong partnership. So we are always, the three of us, looking here to complement each other, to collaborate, and to not duplicate services. So as you heard earlier from Executive Director Brian Collier with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, 45,000 residents of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice will be rejoining our Texas communities each year. It's very important that as a school district, my team looks at the labor market projections on the Texas Workforce Commission website, and that we also regularly interact with employers to see that we are meeting the needs of employers. So we will utilize standards that are put forth by Texas Workforce Commission, Texas Education Agency, to make sure that we're covering all of those components of the skill areas that you need. But we also invite employers to come in and view our programs. And if there's something that's missing, because as we all know, technology changes very quickly, particularly in the last couple of years, we need to hear from employers about what we can do to enhance our particular programs. We invite you to come in and interact with our students. We have student ambassadors in each classroom. So whereas in the past, perhaps you would walk in and an instructor would give you a tour, or I would give you a tour, our students have the self-efficacy to get up and tell you about what they're learning in the classroom, and that will also give you an opportunity as an employer to see what kind of soft skills are there, to see what kind of dedication is in the minds of these students as they're preparing to re-enter our communities. We have technical certificates in about 30 different areas for both men and women. It is very important that the services are equitable for not only men and women, but individuals that come from all different backgrounds, from all different cultures. So we're very purposeful about diversity and equity within our programs as well. Quick story that I like to brag on, we have a commercial driver's license program for women in the Gatesville area, and I was at a recent conference where someone stood up and said the pass rate for your CDL on the first try is, the fail rate is 80% for community members on a commercial driver's license. And I said, I think they misspoke. They meant the pass rate is 80%. And then I quickly learned why the fail rate is 80%. There is a very rigorous assessment that goes in with pre-trip inspection. And as our ladies in the Gatesville area, we're going to DPS and taking their assessments. Our first group had a 100% pass rate. So when we take a look at Texas Association of Business telling us the whys and the data behind hiring individuals that may have had an arrest or conviction history, it's very compelling, and it's very apparent when you visit these classrooms. In terms of selection and how we determine who's going to go into what trade area, it's not only important that we look at the needs of employers, but that we look at the needs of our students. If I'm unhappy in my career or I'm unhappy in my pathway, the chances of entering that pathway are probably not very good. So there is a career exploration process that takes place. There is student advisement. Certainly, I was below the hood of a vehicle yesterday at one of our campuses learning how to change a clutch. So there is interaction by our administration ensuring that they have the tools that they need. So just any certification area that you can think of is available. You mentioned electrical, HVAC, welding. We have a partnership with the Texas Department of License and Regulation to ensure that we are not placing individuals in trade areas for which they will have great difficulty securing employment initially upon joining our communities. And again, I just want to add that my response to this question with a request to employers that please come out and check us out. Please come and take a look at our training programs and the soft skills that we're embedding in those programs when you're considering individually hiring individuals. When you're looking, one of the other panelists mentioned, we look at the individual rather than the specific area of conviction. And I think that that's extremely important because you will find that there are individuals, when you look at them on paper, that are not very appealing, but when you look at them in person, could be your best employee.
I'll just add a few words to what both of you have said. Being in the reentry division, one of the things that we get to do and have the excitement of doing is actually talk to the employers. So we get to come back to our partners and be able to say, this is what employers are looking for, and we're getting phone calls every day for CDLs, we need to get welders, or this is what's happening in the communities, and Union Pacific needs to hire. This is what I had a conversation with Ken about. So one of the things that I think I enjoy about that is having a conversation. You'll see that our manufacturing and agribusiness and logistics partners, MAL, because that's a lot to say in 1 minute, but the on-the-job training that happens, I think, is a very, very important piece. It's a very educational component of what we do. So you'll see that they're out there and you can see what they're training in, because they do a lot of certifications as well. So when Ms. Hartman talks about being able to come on our facilities and see what's happening, I think that's really important for employers, because you can see some of that dedication that goes on. You can see the desire to learn and the desire to change. So when we talk about education and what happens in reentry, reentry starts from day one. So when she talks about assessments, what we're doing, where we're going, all the way into the on-the-job training, there's desire. And so that's one thing I think it's important as we talk about education, is that on-the-job training piece as well. So when you're coming to our booths later on, which I hope you do, we want you to come, we want you to see. Because that's an educational component you can take home as an employer. Know what we're really doing and why the dedication from these folks returning home is there. Because they put a lot of work in to learn that skill set and be good employees to you.
I'd like to thank you for all the good work you guys have done and continue to do. Additionally, a follow-up question to that is, how are these programs selected?
So we look at the labor market data that's posted by Texas Workforce Commission. We receive the, I believe it's Glassdoor reports. We survey our employers. We survey our student population. We look at the availability of instructors, and it is not just one component, but a combination of all of those components where we make selections. We also change programs. So if we find that there's a program that we're offering that does not have a good employment outlook or a sustainable employment outlook, we are going to shift that to a program where individuals will be able to secure and maintain gainful employment. We also look at, as Tracy mentioned, stackable credentials. So if we have a basic skills here, maybe a construction fundamentals class, and we'd like to build on it in electrical, and then let's say we want to be a sign electrician, so we need a CDL to get on our crane truck and get on those high billboards, we will take a look at that and make selections and recommendations. So it is really all about what you need as employers, where our students can be successful, and I think I'll defer to you and Tracy on the rest.
Well, I'll just say and add to what Christina said is, looking at the career pathways and looking at the information that the Texas Workforce Commission gives out about in the different areas, specifically, what's specific to Dallas, Texas may not be specific to Houston or Austin or even East Texas or West Texas. And so we look at the information, and based off the information that we receive from the Workforce Solution of what is in demand, we can offer certain of these certificates for the students that are just as involved or incarcerated. And so the natural progression of the pathway, which we are big on, and I know Wyndham as well, is students advancing. We have something called the apprenticeships that we do through the Department of Labor, where we work with TDCJ, and we're able, the Texas Correctional Industries, and we are able to allow these individual students to log hours, which the Department of Labor, once they get out, they can go out and see that they have these hours. And so these apprenticeships and often credentials such as getting an OSHA training or CPR or forklift training is good for business because you have a high-skilled, you have a trained workforce that is ready on day one to get out. And like Wyndham, you know, employing these soft skills is, I think, a question you'll ask a little bit later on. It's something, you know, we're big on, teaching individuals the inside soft skills before they get out, because reentry does start on day one.
I'll provide just one more example. We've received referrals from individuals on programs too. I got a call from Mr. Collier a couple years ago with a recommendation from one of our legislators that we look at an RV service technician program. This is before COVID was around. And we thought, well, that's a very interesting idea, and let's move forward with it. It is now the #3 growing occupation in the United States. We started it with a program for women at the Woodman State Jail. They are all 100% employed. They are very successful, and they are leaders in their industry. So any ideas that you all as audience members have, or as you connect with us, if it makes sense, we need to do it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Tracy Williams, you brought up a great point that there are 28 different workforce development areas in the state of Texas. Out of those 28, each of them may function differently, or they have programs and services offered to their communities in comparison to another. So for all the Texas employers that are listening that are interested in tapping into this untapped workforce, I highly, highly recommend you get to know your local Workforce Solutions office. I did hear in the last panel someone say soft skills training was a bit of a struggle. Workforce Solutions can also offer that type of training, including mock interviews, resume development, and things of that nature. Additionally, I would also like to extend that question. So what are the what qualifies an individual to receive that type of training?
Well, let's project out to the future for a minute. And you all may have heard that the Pell Grant, which has since the 90s not been available to the incarcerated population outside of an experimental phase that's occurred over the last few years, that Pell will be reinstated for eligibility for the incarcerated population. And when it comes to those funds, TDCJ will set forth criteria for who will access, but there is a great deal of unrestricted access at this point in the proposed federal legislation. So this is certainly going to open doors for people where we do need to look at occupations that require licensing if we have laws in Texas that will restrict certain criminal histories from accessing, but we really need to look again back at what the needs of our employers are. So we want someone in terms of eligibility who wants to be productive, right? And in my mind, and I may be seeing unicorns and rainbows, but I truly believe that if a student advisor can sit down with a potential student and we can identify their interests and their strengths, that there will be very, very few people who do not want to work. I would almost say zero who do not want to work if we do our job on the front end. So eligibility, we do not look outside of licensing restrictions necessarily at particular crimes. It is my job to inform employers and to invite you in so you can see again that what is on paper doesn't necessarily define you. We certainly will look at whether the individual has the requisite skills to be successful in that area. We do not want to set someone up for failure. We will look at the length of time that they have remaining on their incarceration in areas where there will be quickly changing technology. But we also realize the value of providing training to individuals who can act as peer tutors, who can work in the industries within TDCJ and hone in on those skills. So I would say that the criteria at this point is fairly open, with prioritizing individuals who are rejoining our Texas communities, because we know that you need them and that they need you.
There's a lot of discussion about Pell Grant opportunities. There's also ways that TDCJ helps as well. But we've also put a lot of education in with our veterans to talk about how they can tap into Hazelwood funds post 9/11. So I think that's important to talk about as well. We do have a veterans coordinator within TDCJ, and so we have a lot of conversations with our veterans about how to talk to our colleges, make sure that they're aware, and then being able to work with our rehabilitative programs division and have the conversation of letting them know what they're eligible for, so we can communicate that back to our colleges and know that they have those benefits available to them as well. So in terms of qualifying for programs at TDCJ, there's a lot of conversation with the academic advisors, but then there's that secondary piece of knowing that they can pay for that education through different types of opportunities available to them.
Awesome.
Both great points that y'all brought up about Pell being reinstated next July 2023. With Pell being reinstated, it is a game changer for prison as well as individuals getting out, because the RAND study put out a study of 2013 to 2014 that said people who have any type of education is 43 to 48% likely never to return to prison. And so when we look at these different measures that we're talking about for employers, about recidivism, which sometimes is a measure that is either or, we have to start looking at other factors, dissidence, and how, that gradual process of individuals, how can, we make them more well-rounded individuals. And soft skills is something that we hear from employers that they want to know. Can they communicate? Do they have perseverance? And I think the last panel that was up here, they talked about how individuals who are incarcerated are some of the hardest workers. But not only the hardest workers, the retention rate of keeping them, because they have so much to prove. And so how can we transition and do that? And so within TDC, in the partnerships that we make with Lee College and Wyndham and the Reentry Division, it's about how do we make these programs more available. And Pell, with the new rulemaking, allows that any individual, regardless of their time or regardless of what kind of climate, they can take part in education. So it's a big thing. It's a game changer.
Thank you. Miss Christina, excuse me. I keep hearing you say the person that's sitting in front of you may not match the person that's on paper. And I think with this population, it's important for them to be seen differently. Re-see me. Change the way you look at me. Don't look at me for the things I've done or my starting line, but look at me for who I am today and where I can go. Because sometimes it just takes that one person to give them a little push, or preferably it takes us, the entire village, that network of nurture, to get that individual from point A to being successful in whatever capacity that they want to be in. So now let's break away from educational programs for just a minute, and let's get to the employers. What can employers do to support formerly incarcerated employees who have recently rejoined our communities?
What can employers do? Well, there's something called collateral consequences that individuals who are justice impacted often face regarding housing, employment, civic participation. And so with that in mind, we spoke a lot about, the humanity of individuals incarcerated and them making mistakes. Sometimes employers can see, just as the panelists said before we got up here, that these individuals just need a chance. And so giving them a chance and open the door, such as, there was a big push about ban the box. And that was ban the box of not having on employment surveys about whether or not you had been convicted of a felony conviction. And so Christina said it earlier, if individuals can get to the interview and see face-to-face, be able to talk to people that had criminal backgrounds, this will allow employers to see who this individual will be able to talk to them face to face. You know, keep in mind that some of these will become some of the best workers. And so I think that's something, you know, employers, you know, in Texas and throughout the nation can keep in mind that, you know, let's give these individuals a chance not only to fill the gap of the jobs that are available here in this nation, but also, you know, as individuals, we'll give them a chance to see, you know, to help them reintegrate back into society.
I'm sure anybody who knows me well says, uh-oh, she's going to take this one and go, because it's one of those questions of what can an employer do? And I'm thinking, well, they're just like you and me, so why are we talking about treating them any different? And who is them? I mean, they're labeled, I think, as we were interviewing people, the question was, well, what do we call them? Parolee, client, justice involved? Well, hell, call them by their name. You know? And so, really, I think what we need to start having a conversation about is a lot of support systems. You know, as you're out there, you come to our table, you're going to see us talking about website for work. Please join us, because 911 employers have joined us. 911 employers work with TCJ and hire today, and they search every day, and they want to hire skilled employees, not parolees, not clients, employees. But as a partnership, all of us sitting on this stage, what we want to be able to do is give you the very best skilled people that we can. People. I heard the word soft skills, and we do offer an employment class right at your arrival orientation. You're out of prison. This is stressful. Here's how you need to talk to the employer. But we're behind the 8 ball by then. What we're trying to adjust to is calling employers and saying, come on our prison units. Let's have a career expo before people ever release, and meet them where they are, because these are the people who want to walk out without a job. They don't need to worry about it after they get out. They need to know that they're going home to a job, because that is the best moment for somebody to know that success is happening. How can I support an employer? To say I'm here for you when they get out. I've got case managers in 50 parole offices. TDCJ is going to support you and wrap around you if there's any issues. Mr. Rene Hinojosa is in the audience. He puts a commitment letter in every packet of every client walking out the door that says, our parole offices are not open 8 to 5, despite anything you may have heard. If that is happening to one of your clients, call his supervisors, unit supervisors, all the way up to regional directors, and I tell you what, the commitment for our clients not to fail is high. And he doesn't want them to fail, and our directives are for them not to fail either. So what can we do for employers, and what can employers do for us? We just want to be there for our clients. We want them to succeed. And we want them to be normal people like you and I, because I can tell you something. They want to go to work for you. And our doors are open. I've got 4 career expos in August happening on state jails across from San Antonio to Houston, in Dallas. People want to work for you. And at this point, anything I can do to support you, I'm going to do it. We're going to give interviews on Zoom. We're going to bring you to our facilities. And I guarantee you, anybody on this panel, they want to hear how we can help you be successful, but we want our people to be successful as well.
So I am sitting here as representing a district that's a provider of educational opportunities within TDCJ, but I'm also an employer. I employ approximately 1,000 individuals, and I also have a staff shortage right now, perhaps like many of you in the audience. So I believe that as an employer, it is very important for me to walk my talk. I need to do things like when, ma'am, I heard your video, and don't think I didn't want to employ you when I heard that video. So, but I won't, don't worry. I'm not sure if we have any of those in the audience, so I'm not texting while you're talking, but I was texting my general counsel and I asked two things. I said, we have 2 new reentry case managers. Can I put on that position description that it is my preference that the individual have some experience with the justice system? And I would set the preference. And then my second question was, is it legal for me to remove the questions on our Wyndham School District application regarding background? Because I have a human resources department that has the capacity to do that for me, to where my hiring manager would not have to sit there and scratch their head and say, is the superintendent going to allow this hire? So he's researching it for me right now, but I think that we take away some very good ideas from these conferences and from individuals that I would like to employ but won't. But individuals that have skill sets like yours. I also think that it's important that my staff members are effectively trained. So we're talking a lot about soft skills for our students, but what about for our staff? I have many, many good staff members. They are all certified teachers, just like the public school teachers, they're certified principals. Have I ever walked into a classroom and seen that the soft skills of my students were better than the soft skills of my teacher? Have I ever? Have I ever? I have, right? Yeah. Have I ever, as a student myself, had a professor where I thought, there could be some improvement here? Absolutely. Is it the majority of our staff? Perhaps not. But we're very purposeful about training other staff members. And we took a really good example from Union Pacific, who has terminology guidance for working with individuals who have come out of a setting in which I work. We've taken some very good examples from other providers in terms of very strong training on terminology. You mentioned, both of you mentioned calling people by their name, things that are very positive and forward focused. I can provide necessary discipline to a student or an employee in the same manner that I provide praise. It does not have to be an escalated conversation when we're talking about what we can do better. Because I think that that is the purpose of disciplinary action in most cases, is that we want people to do better. We want to hold you to a standard, we need to have boundaries, but ultimately we don't need to lose any more employees if there's something that we can do to turn that ship around.
So I will still, I'm not opposed to it, just to let you know, but I won't, because I know she's successful with you. But they say train them up, grow them up, and it's okay. But I'm going to expound upon that because TDCJ has hired people who have graduated from some of our programs. We have truck drivers. Put your money where your mouth is, right? But we also, thanks to a governor's grant, have 20 women who are going through a program as certified reentry peer specialists. So I think we're both taking that challenge of what would the future look like if some of our reentry case managers were people with lived experience. How neat would that be? So I think it would be right. Absolutely. So that would be my second piece to answer that question.
And up until this point, I haven't said to the audience that I was formerly incarcerated for 2.5 decades. And through TDC, you know, the correctional education, where I got my associate's degree, and took part in a bachelor's program that was instrumental by Mr. Collier, Representative Senator Whitmire, and Senator Patrick, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, where I received a bachelor's degree as a field minister and was able to go back into units and minister, which now they have life coaches and field ministers and peer tutors. And it's something about the aspect of being the peer aspect. And as Christina, as well as Mr. Morris said, about putting your money where your mouth is, you know, Lee College gave me a chance, and I was given a chance, you know, to come back in and work in partnership with TDCJ. And so to be able to sit up here on a panel with them after being incarcerated for so long, you know, it's surreal.
Didn't mention also that we do have one former student on our staff They're in a leadership role. They make over $70,000 a year and earn every penny of it. And I would like 100 more of those individuals working with the Wyndham School District.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So much good information. So, my next question. Aside from academic and technical skills training, what kind of employability skills or soft skills training do you provide and or after incarceration to prepare your graduates to enter the workforce? So let me repeat that question, it's a long one. Aside from academic and technical skills training, what kind of employability skills or soft skills training do you provide during and or after incarceration to prepare your graduates to enter the workforce?
So I will start the question, and I know I will end up passing that on as well, but during incarceration, there are several soft skills that go on. As I mentioned before, we have several on-the-job training programs. During those programs, they interact with their supervisor on the job. They get several different feedback opportunities in terms of how they're performing. They get an opportunity to go through mock interviews. There are oftentimes that some of those programs bring in different community members to go through those mock interviews, which I'm sure Christina will expand upon. In several programs, they do resume writing, but also we have various rehabilitative programming. We have a Stride Dorm, which is a women's reentry center. We have a veterans reentry center, various cognitive programs where you really get to dig deep within yourself, learn how to talk to different people. How do you change that way of thinking? How do you talk? To me, that's a soft skill. We talked about how do you talk? How do you present yourself? I really do think those mock interviews are important. So I talked about having those career expos on a unit. Those employers coming in and giving one-on-one interviews and allowing people to fill out an application and presenting is really important. The ability for TDCJ supervisors, to me a defining moment when we began those career expos was having their supervisors show up. So for instance, a food or laundry service supervisor walking with, we call them inmates while they're inside, but walking with them and saying, yes, I can vouch for their work in the kitchen. I can vouch for their work in the maintenance factories, and talking to employers, but mirroring and saying, coaching, this is how you would talk. That was a really neat moment to watch those staff go in and show them, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And that was at one of our first career expos at the Dominguez unit. Those are just a small tidbit of some of the things that go on. Secondary, you asked about when you get out. So between the reentry staff and the parole division, there's multiple opportunities. I mentioned that new arrival employment class. We have financial literacy classes that we will do. So those are just a few things as examples that happen in the post-release environment. Parole offers several cognitive skills classes as well. But the interactions between the parole officers, I know that there's a lot of things that can be said, sometimes are misnomers, but that collaboration that happens between parole, just simple, how are you doing today? And we need to revisit that. So I think a lot of that is taught in terms of how we need to communicate.
Real quick, April, so you brought up a good point. Back in the day, when I was that career counselor at the Capital area, which was like 4 years ago, I remember interacting with probation and parole, and it was always so difficult because my job is to get this individual employed. Their job is to ensure public safety. So the constant checking in, the constant, clients may be missing appointments because they weren't able to get out. How can we get better as an agency, and also with TDCJ and also Lee College, how can we get better at collaborating and working together so that we are all pursuing the same mission of getting people employed, reducing recidivism, and ensuring public safety?
So I think we're going down that road in a better way now. I keep seeing Ethan over there. He's on our reentry task force. But what Ethan has done is he actually came to our task force, but we're having a lot of conversations about, number one, I talked to you about TDCJ reentry case managers in our parole offices. In terms of workforce solutions offices, we're beginning to host our job fairs, hands down, any opportunity in your offices. So that's one big collaborative piece. The communication between a parole or probation officer, and Jarvis with Bear County is here again. I told you Mr. Hinojosa from parole is here. Hope I haven't missed anybody I'm familiar with and don't see. That communication is key. Because if you have that communication, like I told you, the commitment letter and a release packet is right there. So the client knows parole is not closed at 5 o'clock, right? If they are wearing an electronic monitor, I'm seeing people, employers shaking their head. Yes, we can work with your schedule at work. There is an opportunity for them if they have to be home at 5 and they need overtime. There needs to be a discussion if there's an emergency. But you can reach a parole officer. There's collaborative communication that has to happen. I think we had that conversation earlier on a panel. Those building of relationships sometimes is maybe us as reentry having a general contact at your workforce office, but having maybe a monthly meeting with parole and saying, hey, this is how we need to collaborate more. You know what I mean? And so those are some of the genuine conversations we had with Ethan just the other day. Come, maybe we just need to have lunch together and talk about what we need to do better. But talking, we need to just talk. But we need to know what the problem is.
Exactly.
Because if we don't know, we can't fix it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just briefly say, on the inside, dealing with soft skills, my immediate supervisor, Dr. Brandon Warren, he is real big on soft skills and character, because character is what you need as an individual, which will go beyond the employment skills that you have. And so we have a curriculum that we teach on the inside, a 6 weeks class that deals with resume writing, deals with the things that an individual face. And so the network that we have with individuals of going and teaching them this curriculum, as well as talking about soft skills and character. On the outside, also, we have something what we call support groups, and these support groups are on Zoom. And what we do, because Texas is so big, individuals can be on Dallas. Matter of fact, Alexa Garza from Tiflis, Missy is on there sometime. And what we do is individuals, formerly incarcerated individuals, network. We talk about problems, we talk about things, and help one another in order to make better individuals or citizens. And so these are the type of things that are outside of the box that helps dealing with reentry. Usually we use in my day-to-day operations of answering mail from individuals on site, we use Mr. Moore's they have a list of resources on the website, TDCJ website, that we use often. We often point them to the Texas Workforce Solution, in whatever region they are. We tell them that's one of the first places that you need to go, because they have many opportunities that can help in whatever capacity. So it's always about getting the information out there to them. And I think, maybe as employers, as agencies, we have to do a better job of coordinating this information and coming together throughout the state of Texas.
In terms of additional programs, on the front end, we have a cognitive intervention program. It's an 8-week course that addresses thinking patterns and thinking errors. I also had the opportunity to take a cognitive course probably about 10 years ago in training. It has served me very well. I also do not have an arrest or conviction record because, like Commissioner Alvarez, I was not caught. So those programs are very good for anyone, but it really allows the individuals sitting in our classroom to address some of the decisions they made, what they were thinking, what the surrounding circumstances were, and to shift those perceptions, to identify what's the trigger that makes me angry, what's the trigger that makes me engage in substance use. And we see that the students are very successful in those programs. There is also a program called Changes that is on just prior to release, and this program emphasizes not only cognitive skills, but community experiences. Very important to mention that House Bill 918 that passed a couple years ago, Penny was instrumental in that, requires now that incarcerated individuals, that are students, complete a resume and a mock interview prior to rejoining the communities. And I'll tell you what, if you want to have some fun, come in and practice interviewing with our students. It is a great experience. It is extremely beneficial to them. And as one of the other panelists spoke about earlier, it gives them that opportunity for interaction with people from the general public and eases some of the anxiety. In addition to that, we have a family literacy program. Our future employees are sitting in K-12 classrooms right now. And we have circumstances where incarcerated parents have no idea what their children are learning. They don't know how to support them. They don't know how to have conversations with them about what they're learning in school so that they're able to complete high school and engage in careers and stop the cycle of generational incarceration. So although those students aren't sitting in our seats, we can directly impact them by assisting their parents be meaningful partners in their children's education. We also emphasize, like TDCJ, equitable programs for women. I gotta tell you, when I was in high school, no one ever talked to me about the possibility of being a welder, about the possibility of being an electrician, about a commercial driver's license opportunity. It never ever came up. And the ladies that are engaging in all these trades, I think they kind of feel like they have something to prove, that we do have the skill set to be in the workforce in trades in which we've been traditionally underrepresented, and they are amazing. You will want them in your offices and in your work areas. So I will mention something that another panelist mentioned earlier, and they said something about typing skills, and that's an area where I think we can do better. That's something that we're looking very closely at, and just hearing it today is resonating, so that's something that we're offering to a subset of our population, but I believe in this age of technology we can do better there.
I do know, and I'm speaking from Capital Area because I live in Austin, and I will say that Workforce Solutions offices tend to offer typing tests for job seekers to test their ability and to improve in their ability for typing speed as well. So I wanted to make note of that. But thank you all for coming and thank you all for sharing. I would like to take the opportunity to open the floor for questions. Don't you all raise your hand at once. Anybody in the crowd have a question for the panelists? Okay, I believe someone will be right over with the microphone. Or, yes, gentleman right here.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? My name is Alexa Garza. I'm system impacted. I served 19 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and if I hadn't probably said anything, you probably wouldn't know looking at me. I don't wear a scarlet A or anything on my chest. I received my higher education while incarcerated, and as a woman, I was told that I could continue on to a master's program because my place was in the home. And I hear a lot of talk about equity, and I hear a lot of talk about Pell, and I hear a lot of talk about language, and I was just there 3 years ago, and where was it? Because it wasn't with me. And parole did not help me. Re-entry did not help me. I was lost. And it's really hard to stand up here and share this, and I'm not calling anybody anything. The intentions are great, but I want more than to work on the factory floor. I want to be in the executive offices. And I think I deserve that, and I worked very hard for it, and only certain organizations would even give me the time of day. And we're standing here, and no one in this room is really talking about what we really need to talk talk and be transparent and really clear on what our message is here today. Yes, there's an untapped market of skilled workers behind those walls. And yes, we do need to do a better job of training them up. But when I came out after 19 years, I couldn't look men in the eye. Because as an offender, you don't do that. And that's something that we're not talking about here today. So if nothing else from today, that you remember me, you remember that I want a chance, and I think I deserve it. And so do all those people that are going to come out and not have anyone else help them, because they don't know what they don't know. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to your comments. And first of all, that we hear you. TDCJ, I know, hears you. And I believe that there are plans for a master's degree program for women. If you haven't enrolled in that course yet, I have 2 master's degrees. I got them utilizing a state employee tuition waiver while I was working, and I can help you with that pathway. I would also request that you take a look now if you haven't had the opportunity, because I think that there have been some positive changes. We are not where we need to be, right? But since 3 years ago, there have been some very positive improvements that I want to make sure you have the opportunity to see. And as a woman, I am a huge champion for women having equitable access. I'm a huge, as are the panelists here, believer in listening to our clients and listening to people with lived experience to help us be better and do better. So I would like to thank you for your comments, and thank you for being here today.
Oh, one more question?
Hi, I'm Penny Rayfield, and I just want to comment to the young lady. First of all, we hear you, and I can say that I've been working with the system, within the system, for over 20 years now, and I know that it has been a challenge for people coming out of prison for a long time. But I can also say that over the last few years, as is evidenced by this conference that's happening right now, right? This is the first conference that I know of this type that has been hosted by a state agency ever in the history of Texas. So I would say to you, following up on what Ms. Hartman said, that, give us a chance, right? We're asking businesses to give people like you and your peers a chance, and we need you to do the same. You've heard today that there is some fear associated with hiring folks who have a record, and it's a natural fear. And part of that is because if you haven't been incarcerated, if you don't have a loved one incarcerated, if you're not a victim of crime, you just don't think about it, right? I mean, prison is not on your radar. So what we're trying to do here is, in the best way that we can, to speak a language that businesses speak. Help them understand the value of people who are coming out of incarceration, or people who may have been out of incarceration for 10 or 15 or 20 years, because we understand that they still face some of the barriers that you're talking about, right? And what we have to do is we have to continue educating the folks, and this event today is a great way to launch that effort on a bigger scale. And while I'm up here, I want to ask Ms. Hartman, if she will, she talked about the resume program that they have been implementing since House Bill 918 was passed, and thanks to the help of the good folks at the Texas Association of Business to get that passed. If she could share with us a little bit more in detail about that program and how many people have completed that process, just to give you some idea of how just in the last 4 years, things have changed. So, and just thank you all, and thank you again.
Sure. I mentioned that we have a cognitive and a changes program, and the modules are embedded in the changes program and also offered as a standalone. The programs were developed by Texas Tech University. Don't know if we have any representatives today. Yes. We do? Okay. And I would say last time Penny and I pulled the data a couple months ago, 32,000 individuals had completed a resume and mock interview, which is outstanding, and not only builds their self-confidence, but prepares them for employment with you all.
Just with you one thing. Thank you for your courage in speaking up. But I will say to Penny and TAB and to everybody in the audience, she's absolutely right. Sitting here today, she's telling you things are changing. And we can sit up here, we're going to tell you all of the things that are happening today and then moving forward, but I would love to talk to you. Because every day I talked a little bit about that Strive Reentry Center. That is for women. That is changing the life now of over 400 women in the past 3 years that leave with a job when they walk out of TDCJ. Now one of them has left without a job. I think only 5 of them have come back, but don't quote me on that because it's not more than 5. I know that. You never throw out a number unless you're sure when you're in an audience, but I'm almost positive. I need you to know that we're asking everybody out here to make change, but we have a commitment to make change as well. And it's people like you that are telling us where we need to make that change as much as we're asking everybody else to join in with us. So thank you for your courage.
Now I'll say this, Mr. Gundy, Muhammad Gundy said, be the change you want to see in the world. And, you know, the evidence with Misty's story, you know, with my story, Alexa, you know, I know your story, and maybe somebody else in here has maybe been just as impacted. They said the number was like 1 in 4 in America. So with over 70 to 80 million people that in some kind of way justice impacted, you know, the success stories, the stats, the numbers that we talked about, you know, just seeing us, you know, individuals as human, and not only you changing, but it also, we change as individuals for public safety, you know, it's a collaborative effort. And so I think, you know, we're trending in the right direction. But if we do not do anything after these different meetings, then, you know, what was it all for? And so I think that we are trending in the right direction and taking steps to change. And so it's so great to see this right here.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes panel 2, Success Through Educational Partnership with TDCJ. I am happy to inform you that lunch is being served right now as we speak. I am Jonathan Butler. I hope you enjoyed the panel. Thank you to Mr. Tracy Williams, Krista Hartman, and April Zamora. I'm Jonathan Butler. I approve this message.